I like to say I'm a pinball in a pinball machine.
I can very much see that.
For me specifically, or just the analogy in general?
Analogy in general, yeah. You sometimes specifically, but also in general, because you put too much caffeine in me or alcohol, and I will be the giggliest pinball machine you have ever seen. Glad to be a very happy alcohol consumer. That's not how you say that.
This feels like a good segue into saying that this is an explicit podcast because we might talk about things that are not for younger ears.
I have never been drunk or tipsy while recording this. I have not had alcohol. I can't say that's true of all of us.
I might be.
That could be a whole new podcast.
Next year, New Year's, it'll be our drink-infused pajama episode, and we will have fancy cocktails and pajamas and talk smack about all the things we read. That should be next New Year's episode.
Yeah, that will be explicit, certainly.
Welcome to Book Dragon Banter, a podcast where three aspiring authors talk all things books. We're fantasy focused, but we are not fantasy exclusive. I'm Zinzi Bree. With me are my wonderful co-hosts.
I'm Sage.
And I'm Katherine.
And we're so glad you're here. This is specifically about hopes for this podcast and what we would like the future of it to look like in 2026. Now, this is something that I don't have bullet points for. It's something that we're just going to talk about, and you guys get to have a bit of a behind-the-scenes look of what we're thinking about for season 2, right? We're coming up to the end of our first season, a lot of which is just trial and error of us testing things out, seeing what we like, what we don't like. And I really love to iterate. I like to challenge. I like to change things up. Some of the things that we are looking to keep and some of the things that we are looking to change in our season 2 are we want to keep our book club. We're all really enjoying our fantasy reads. We are going to make that accessible to our listeners through Fable, where you can join our book club on Fable and find out what books we are reading next and read along with us. I will be in charge of that, so you will see me in the comments as we go through the book, and then hopefully you guys will come and listen. Something that we are discussing for our season 2 is finding a fantasy series to do a deep dive, do a couple chapters at a time each episode. And this is something that I really hope that we can find a good fantasy series that is epic and high fantasy and is just all of those things that Sage loves and has been really missing. So we're going to be discussing, do we want to revisit a favorite of hers, like the Realm of the Enderling series? Do we want to try a new series? I have talked with another podcaster who just recently has done a series breakdown, and they gave me a couple of tips. One of which being maybe start with a shorter series first. If you are going to do a series breakdown.
Or something.
Yeah. Well, but like if we did the first, if it's set up in like trilogies where you can do like the first 3 is kind of its own story arc, and then from there you can decide, do you continue through this whole epic thing or do you just go, these first 3 are enough? So that is something we're going to be discussing, titles, and possibly even letting you guys help us narrow down on series as we consider that as part of what we will release in the summer of 2026, right? Something else that we are hoping to do is start having guests. So that will be fellow writers, that will be other authors who are published and indies. And we are excited to share those stories and make those connections and new bookish friendships. Am I missing anything else that I feel like we had a giant meeting over like all the things our podcast could do and could be, and do we cut back to once a month? Do we ramp it up to once a week? I can't sustain once a week currently with my editing process in our current format, but there is the discussion of, if you guys want more, can we give you more, and how do we do that?
So tell us in the comments. Be an active audience, please.
Yeah, those were the big ones. And then we also talked about, did we want shorter episodes? Did we want to do more topic specific versus the book club style. Some of those we haven't come up with a full answer to, I don't think. Once a week, I think we would definitely need to make shorter episodes.
Absolutely. Or do part 1s, part 2s, part 3s, and part 4s, kind of like this episode might evolve into.
Yeah. I feel like just for an audio bit, because like so many of the things that we've talked about are important to both the process as a reader and also the process as a writer. Some of it is just as podcasters, which still feels weird to say and own, but we are. There's so much potential for what we can do for our listeners and for our community, and that's something that we want feedback on. We want to know, what do you want from us? What can we give you? What would you like us to discuss or hear about? Or is there books that we are not reading and that you really wish we would? We would love to get that feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
To sum up, I think the hope for Book Dragon Banter in 2026 is more of Book Dragon Banter, but we will see what that looks like in the future. But I'm excited for all of it. I'm excited for the challenge, which brings me to From the Writer's Desk. Let's move on to our next segment. Books that we loved from a writer's perspective, the structure, the world building, the characterization. Were there books that shined for you more as a writer, looking at it analytically, than they did as or both, enjoyment as a reader and a writer? But like, what were books that as a writer just sang?
Yeah, for me, the first one that comes to mind is Hellbent. I know that's number 2 in the series, but I'm not coming up with book number 1. But Leigh Bardugo's style in that series felt very relatable to me for my style. Like when I read it, I feel inspired to put my style on the page. And I mean that's very specifically to style, not necessarily like the world or anything like that, although I do love the dark academia things, but there's something about the way that she writes that I feel inspires my style as a writer. Now, it'll be entirely up to readers in the future to interpret that style however they feel, but I do feel inspired by the way that Leigh Bardugo represents her style on the page.
I haven't read that one yet. I think I'm waiting for book 3 to come out. I read the first one and yeah, agree. She's got a fantastic style and I really love contemporary fantasy. So where it's set in the real world, but there's magic, right? And so that series has that. And I love that. So my favorite book of the year, I haven't talked about yet, is a duology, the favorite book that I read. And it's because every time I sat down to read it, like I was loving it, immersed with it, enjoying the characters, the writing style and everything, but it always just made me want to go write my own book. And to me, that's a mark of a fantastic book, is where I become inspired. So for me, it was One Dark Window. And the second book in the duology is Two Twisted Crowns. And the other thing that was really interesting with this one was that the first book was entirely by the one protagonist's point of view, I think first person. And then there's a plot twist at the end of the first book that I'm not going to share because I highly recommend you go read it and experience it for yourself. But the second book then transitions into having both her first-person perspective a little bit at first and then more, but interspersed with other characters' third-person point of views. And I maybe have read something that's done that before. It really struck me as interesting because I feel like that's unusual. And she managed, I think it's Rachel Gillig.
Gillig.
Yeah, okay. So she handled it like a master. The way the first book was written inspired me to write. Then I went to the second book and I was like, whoa, this is a totally different point of view, perspective kind of thing. It inspired me to continue to work on my own novel, which is third person, which was great because then I love to read stuff that's in third person while I'm writing because it helps me not switch perspectives or anything like that. So yeah. And a dark fantasy, but like just gorgeously written. Really loved that one. I also really love Maggie Stiefvater, and I read the second trilogy of The Raven Boys was the first series, and then she did a second with one of the characters, a few of the characters really, from that first trilogy. And the first book is, I think, called Call Down the Hawk. Her writing style is really evocative. Her characterization is extremely good, and she really makes you care about the characters. And that's something that I always aspire to with my own writing. I love the contemporary, like, fantasy setting that one has, because it's real world. It's all set on the East Coast, and there's all this dream magic and stuff that's like really original and interesting. But you just really end up caring deeply, and she's really good at writing. She has multiple perspectives also, but she's really good at writing her characters to feel very different from one another, which I think is a strong skill, to not have every voice sound the same, and like to have all these different unique characters that you care about, even though they're so different from each other.
Yeah. I also read One Dark Window. I haven't gotten to the second half of the duology. It's currently sitting in my holds from the library. But I did read The Night and the Moth, which is also by Rachel Gillig. And I went back into my notes of my review. To me, she is a master craftsman, right? Like, just the atmosphere, the layers in theming and story and characterization. So while those are not ones that I admire them as a writer, I'm impressed by them. I do think there's elements of her writing that I would like to study, but I don't know how much they would apply to me as a more cozy fantasy. They're too dark for me. So for over in the cozy fantasy section of books that I really enjoyed this year, one of them would be Violet Thistlethwaite is Not a Villain Anymore, which is a cozy fantasy that came out quite recently. And the part that I would love to emulate in my own writing is there are two characters, two POVs. Every time the character would think about another person or think about how something makes sense to them, it was always laced with that particular character's job or way of thinking. If you're a chef, the way you interact with the world is through food, right? And you're looking at people and you're like, I need to remember this person's name. Their hair reminds me of blue cheese. This is blue cheese Jeff, right? Like, or, this is a person who, it might not be their job, but they might be obsessed with birds. And so every time that they meet new people, they're remembering them because it looks like a kiwi or an ostrich, and is mentally coming up with ways that just suit the character's way of thinking. I really loved that and would like to emulate that in my own writing, of getting so into the character that even the way that they think is formed around what they're passionate about. Another one that for me is a hopeful writing emulation. I've only read the first one in the series, which is Assistant to the Villain. I don't know how the rest of the series goes, and I'm looking forward to exploring more of that series, but I know some of the book world seems to be divided on how long the slow burn was, or that the book series is still going and it's not resolved yet. This is not a book that I want to emulate the world building. It is a book that I want to emulate some of the humor. I found the books very funny and charming. And so that is something that I would also like to infuse in my own writing.
I love that you brought that up, because it really inspired me style-wise. We're Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer and By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. And those are extremely different. But you ladies know me. Like, my style, like that messy first draft that comes out is incredibly sassy. And at least I think, in whatever state that I have written it in, I think it's hilarious. And then I come back to it a few days later and I'm like, oh, good Lord. But then I also have these really pensive states where I really like to encounter concepts in a really thoughtful way. It's very atmospheric. And I believe that Jodi Picoult's By Any Other Name specifically, and the Assistant to the Villain series kind of reflect that and have inspired that writer in me as well. Both of those series in different ways.
The duology of you.
The duology of you? Is that a
not
book
as in
series,
a
or are
book?
you?
That's I'm taking the
Thinking
two
of me.
sides. Yes, the dichotomy of you. That's maybe a better way of saying it, but it's like, the two sides of you, the same coin.
Yep,
The
love
duology
that.
of you sounds like a really cool book title, and maybe I should just stick that somewhere.
You've also
for
named
a
another book
future-
today.
Yeah.
I want to call it out. You said, I'm thinking of you, Addie LaRue. So V.E. Schwab, if you ever listen to this and you want to write a follow-up, your second book should be I'm thinking of you, Addie LaRue. Just, out into the universe, because Zinzi named it, she called it, and that was excellent. And yes, maybe one of these days I'll write a book called The Duology of You, because that is also really beautiful.
Duology of You really makes me think YA, kind of like bittersweet romance.
Yeah, kind of like a Shatter Me kind of style.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking that the Thinking of You, Addie LaRue should be a fan fiction. I don't know that I can get V.E. Schwab to approve, but that should absolutely be a fan fiction somewhere. Ooh, what goals did you have last year as a writer, and did you meet them or did they change? Laugh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like that encompasses it. End of story.
I had very ambitious goals. I was fully thinking and intending to have finished drafting, editing, and have published my debut cozy fantasy autumn set book. Did not happen. I got stuck, and we started a podcast, and we started a business, and a whole lot of other life changes happened. And the writing is still progressing, but I have to accept that it's at a much slower pace than I had hoped for myself. And I'm adjusting to that. I'm making my peace with slower progress, but I am hopeful. I do want to say, going forward with 2026 and new writing goals, I am far less lofty, and I need to just have some fun with writing. So, Katherine, I'm very much considering picking up our secret project.
Yes. Me, I would love to.
That you've been like, I just want to work on this. And then Sage may be our alpha reader, and she can tell us if we're actually funny or not.
I am very discerning.
And I'll cut this if you want me to, Katherine, because I know you're more private about your writing than I am. But just the whole concept of it is ridiculous. It's fun. It's out there. It's not meant to be taken seriously. And I think we've got a lot of serious things that we are trying to do right now. And I think I need just to infuse my writing with some fun. So I am looking
feeling that
at
same way.
Picking that back up and making some progress there. And when not working on that, for solo projects, I am looking at maybe doing some short stories based around the story engine deck prompts that we've been making during Book Dragon Inc. There's some story ideas that have come out of that intrigue me and that I want to try playing with.
My goal for last year was to finish my draft, which is probably like somewhere between a second and third draft, depending on scene and chapter, because some of it got pretty heavily rewritten, so that I could start a beta read with my writing group. But I have not finished it, so I didn't meet that goal. I have until like March, or maybe end of March, early April, to get my draft done, which is my new goal. I, however, did succeed in one of my writing goals for 2025 because I had a short story published in a magazine, which being published by 2025 was like a kind of long-term goal I had for myself. So even though it was not my debut novel, it was still a legitimate publishing, and I should have my hands on hard copies of the magazine in the near future. So that was really exciting, and that made me feel very validated. However, like I said, I always have very high expectations for myself. I wish that it was a full novel, not a short story. But that has kind of led me into besides my novel writing and my 6 other novels I'm also currently writing. That's maybe why I can never seem to finish something. I also want to write like one short story. I was thinking once a month. So kind of like Zinzi, there is a story seed that inspired me, so I might write that one. But I'm liking the idea of doing one short story a month and not editing them, finishing them necessarily. But maybe. We'll see. Or maybe I'll do 6 months of writing drafts and then 6 months of editing drafts.
Interesting.
That could be fun.
So my goal in 2025 was to finish a draft, but usually there's something else that takes over my mental capacity. And I have learned that I need a state of obsession to finish a project like this a lot of the time. So, which is part of why I was the voice going like, let's extend our writing times for our retreats that we do in Book Dragon Inc., the Ink retreats. And now I think I've reframed some of that, to be fair, but I'm an obsessive writer. I have to be in a state of obsession in order to get that inspiration on the page when it's like my passion project. Now, that said, I completely postponed my book. I just released it to the ether because it was causing me stress instead of bringing me joy. And what was bringing me joy and excitement was getting into the building of Book Dragon Inc. So I just postponed my book indefinitely, but it has been coming up for me in the past couple of months that I really wanted to start writing again. But what has been coming up for me is the fun book, Zinzi, that you and I had that original inspiration idea for at this time last year. However we bring Sage in, we need to. However that happens, I look forward to it, whatever that looks like. But that is also calling to me. So I'll put it out there to the internet, the ether, the whatever this is on the podcast, that I am also interested in that particular project because there's somebody else in it with me, just like with this business. There is just fun to be had. There's not a lot relying on me to make it perfect, which is another aspect of my book that was causing me stress because I am a book editor. I tell people my opinions and my ideas, and I guide them and help to inspire and motivate them as a job. So I put a lot of pressure on my own writing, which is part of the reason why I don't have something published under my name outside of academics. And it's because I put so much weight on that. So to do something fun that I don't put that same level of pressure on, yes, I'm here for it right now.
We have our 3 writing goals, whether loose or structured, for 2026.
I just want to say I'm excited to be your accountability partner for your book as you're writing it. If you need somebody to ask you, you can tell me. I'm asking for consent. So when you are ready for me to kind of be like, when can I read a chapter? When can I get something? Just take your time. But I'm happy to be that person.
I want to start talking about it now.
I don't actually think that it's going to be written structurally as a book, full book. To me, it either is novella or the beginning of like a serial. But if we go the direction of serial, we got to bring in a bunch more characters, which sounds very exciting given the world that we already started creating for it.
I've kind of seen this developing into like a graphic serial too. So like, play with the thought,
Considering we have hot characters on purpose, but we're like playing with some of the hot character tropes at the same time. Yes.
It was exciting.
So hopes for the year as a writer, I feel like we kind of covered along with the goals, right? I would like to ask, do you guys feel like you learned any big lessons about your writing process? Because for me this year, it was learning that I am not like a write, publish, repeat writer. Like I hope to be. I love reading serials. I would love to be able to produce at the rate where I could write and put my stuff out there into the public eye much sooner than I am. But part of that is also me recognizing that a lot of the writing that I do, because I am writing, not fiction, but I am journaling the majority of the days out of the week for mental health. And that's important. And it's okay for me to prioritize that over my fiction work if that's what I need. So I think that was 100%. One of my big lessons for 2025.
I have like a 2-part lesson. I also don't write as quickly as I would like. And I have early in my writing journey, I had like a lot of self-criticism that would come up for me a lot, and it would stop me from writing. I would tell myself my writing was bad, and I almost quit writing because of it. And I have to actually give props to my husband because he would say like, no, you're not quitting, right? And I appreciated that from him, especially since he doesn't really read the kind of books that I write. So he doesn't have vested interest in that aspect of being the reader. He's just supporting me as a partner, which is lovely. But I think that so it's been a multi-year process, but I have pretty much, knock on wood, vanquished the inner critic to the point where it does come up sometimes, but I recognize it. And it's usually because I'm exhausted and just need to like not be writing at that moment and like allow myself to, go to sleep or whatever it is that I need, have some food, something to restore. But as part of that, I've also, I think a lot of the reason that like negative self-talk came up for me was because I was trying to fit myself into a mold of what a writer's process is supposed to be. And ideally, I would write a really messy first draft and then I would revise it into a really neat second draft and blah, blah, blah. I write scenes out of order. I change things halfway through and revise. Like, I am a messy, creative, inspire, mood-based writer. And I think by telling myself I was doing it wrong was stopping me from doing it as much as I needed to be. So I'm still working on that, but I think I've made a lot of progress. Now, however, I just need the accountability of like, yes, I write all over the place. And yes, it's not always, sometimes I like revise scenes to the point of perfection before I've even written anything else, which I feel like is a bad idea. But if that's what my process is, then like just let go of the shame and self-judgment and just keep working. I do feel like my process could become more streamlined and could evolve, but that also to honor the fact that this is how my creative brain works and it ultimately results in good work that I am proud of. So not to beat myself up over the fact that I don't write the way I imagine it should be. I think that's like maybe a lifelong kind of thing.
It's a lifelong lesson. You don't wound yourself or guilt trip yourself or harm yourself over not living up to the imagined version of you as a writer.
Yeah. 100%. Or as a human, just all of us in general. Like, humans are messy and we're flawed, and that's what makes us beautiful.
Yeah. I think my lesson might be, in tandem a little bit with what I previously had to say about letting go of my main passion project. Part of that was that I was holding the editorial hat while I was writing over my writer self, as if I should measure up to this standard as a writer. And they're two different hats that I wear. So I think that I've come to the conclusion by the end of the year, and also because I have been in business with you ladies and kind of learned and grown as a human, shed some skin, so to speak, that my writing process, my writing style does not have to represent necessarily the things that I would say are quality, especially in that first draft. Like, it doesn't have to look a particular way. Because I would never tell a client that it has to look a particular way. It has to meet all these standards, especially in a first draft. Now, I can help them meet their goals on future drafts and whatnot, but the first draft is just to get it on the page. And to stop myself from writing because I am already judging it before it's even completed is so sad, but so real. So I relate hard to that. And I think that was a huge part of my learning process this year when it came to writing. Will it continue to be part of my inner critic? Yeah, probably. I'm not at that point where I can say that my inner critic and I are besties yet, but can I process through it a little bit smoother than I used to? Yeah, I believe that I can. I think I can let go and enjoy a little bit better.
All right, now that we've talked about things from the writer's desk, which brings me to book challenges. We came up with some of our own for 2026. We each created our own, and we have a bonus one that works in two ways. So I'm going to go ahead and let Sage, can you please explain your Magic Systems bingo card book challenge?
So I created a fantasy bingo challenge, which you can play a couple of different ways. You can get them in the show notes. All of the details are listed with the bingo card that you can print out or just save. But basically, it's standard 5x5 bingo with a wild card center space. And you can choose to just get a line by reading 5 books, or you can try and do blackout by doing 25 different books. And there might be the case where some books cover more than one square, and that is up to your discretion if you want to, have one book cover both vampires and dream magic. If you have a book you read that has both of those things in there, then you can go ahead and black both of those out, cross both of those off. But you can also do the full challenge of 25 individual books to do a full blackout. Like I said, it has things like, it does have various mythical creatures like dragons and vampires and fae. But it also has things like elemental magic, time magic, dream magic, 24 total categories. So yeah, if you love fantasy, if you love magic, then you might want to check this one out.
Katherine, what's yours?
I have been challenging myself since high school to read at least one nonfiction book a week. And what I'm going to do is with this challenge, I'm going to make it once a month. So it's a little bit more sustainable for a lot of people. But I like self-help books. I like psychology books. I like books that are specifically about the science of the vagus nerve. And also books about memory and memoir and who we are as humans and that kind of thing. So long as it is something that you are interested in learning more about or that helps you to encounter yourself in a different way. I want everybody to be reading one nonfiction book a month.
I do kind of feel like your nonfiction challenge might be separate from your mood read thing, but it is actually a challenge that I had for myself last year and plan to have in this year as well. So we can keep each other accountable on the nonfiction once a month plan. I got through 4. I did 4 nonfictions in 2025, and that's not 12, so I need to do better. Anyway, we will also have a bonus mood reading bingo sheet that will be in a format similar to Sage's, but the idea behind it is you are either tracking you read this book because you were angry and wanted to read an angry book, or you were happy and wanted to read a happy book, or you are tracking you read this book and it made you the emotion on here. It puts you into the mood of, am I happy? This one made me sad. This one made me heartbroken. This one made me laugh. And it's like that one is just like, hey, color in the emoji face of this mood, right? Like
I love that.
So it can be any book, just what mood were you looking for, or what mood did it give you when you finished reading it? Whichever one.
Oh my gosh.
I still have my own challenge. The idea of it is things in 4s. I love the number 4. I can't really explain why, but it's just my favorite. But I would like to do books that either on the cover or the season is one of the 4 seasons, right? You're going to have spring, summer, autumn, and winter. That's one set of 4. Another set of 4 is directions, north, south, east, and west. Is that in the title of the book? Is that a direction that at some point in the book that you're reading is mentioned that they're traveling? Is there a compass on the cover of the book that shows one of those directions? My rules for this is very broad. You can interpret it how you like. Another one of the 4 is elements. So fire, air, water, and earth, right? So that's another set of 4. And then my final set of 4 is modes of travel. So that is travel by air, by sea, travel by land, and travel by magic as your final mode of transportation. So those will be my things in 4 reading challenge that I have no idea how I'm going to do myself, but I'm excited to try.
I like it. I want to take all of these challenges. Honestly, part of me wants to challenge myself to do that, but I also know that challenges are generally not my thing. The only one that I've ever kept up with is the one nonfiction book a week. And even then, I give myself a lot of grace. Like, so long as I read a couple in a month, I call it good enough. And by the end of the year, it definitely all averages out because I'm a mood reader. So sometimes I'm in a mood to read a lot of nonfiction books at once. And I'll read like 5 or 6. And then I just call that good. So as long as the numbers kind of average out for me and I feel satisfied with it, I call it challenge goal met. Perfection not required.
We will be checking in with this on air during the podcast or in our somewhere in our all the things that we do. All right. Speaking of all the things that we do, you can join our Fable book club over on Fable. Our book for January is Elatsoe by Darcie Little Badger. It is a YA standalone, although I did learn recently that it has a prequel book. But when I picked this book, I did not know it was going to be a murder mystery. I did not know it was going to involve dead animal ghosts. That makes me nervous. I just knew it was a fantasy and a YA and that it had an Indigenous writer. and that it was well recommended. We'll go into it more when we get into the book itself, but I believe it has a couple of awards, or at least nominations. But I'm really excited to read it with you guys. So check that out. Elatsoe by Darcie Little Badger.
Outside of this podcast, we also have our Book Dragon Inc. writing retreats and Write With Me Zinzi Bree, where you can join Zinzi and write alongside a lovely community of authors. You can check all of those options out on bookdragoninc.com or the links that are in the show notes. And you can find all of our social media down there as well.
Our writing retreat's another offer that we have been putting together for so long. It's part of why we're here together. And we can't wait to have more people come and participate in these events with us and to give us feedback on what kind of changes it makes on your writing process, on your book. Whatever those transformations are for you, we cannot wait to hear what they are.
You can find the book challenges that we just talked about on our Substack, Book Dragon Banter. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a review. Us book dragons, we need attention. Feed us your attention.
Social affirmation, please.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this incredibly long episode, or a short cut-up episode, because I don't know which it's going to end up being, because I think we have about 3 hours of recording here. This has been Book Dragon Banter. Thank you so much for tuning in. We can't wait to see you next time. Bloopers. I'm determined to just say that word a different way for each episode, and I'm sad that I haven't had the chance and the time to put bloopers on the ends of the other one, and I want to get back to it because I think they're fun. I just can't tell if anyone else thinks they're fun, so it's just me amusing myself. I'm going to make that go away so I can look at our script, our guidelines. They're just guidelines. So, did we do enough poses, or did we basically, we're all just going to do the different hearts? I wish I had a pop, please don't make this a dirty hand gesture.
Oh yeah, let's all do dirty hand gestures.
Yeah.
That would be a good way to get views.
Yeah. That's for the smut episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, like a sparkler or a popper.
Yes, yep. That's what I was thinking about. Sparklers or like a little confetti popper.
That's probably where I should bring up the fact that my mom saw a clip of our podcast and I said, oh, hey, listen to this. It's funny because I did something stupid. And she was like, oh, you mean because your microphone looks like a dildo? And I was like, no, but okay. Joke missed, but now the other joke is just not as funny. So,
mm-hmm. Was that were you good. Showing her when you had your shirt open so that we could imaginary throw M&Ms down? And
yeah. Yes. Yeah. You know, the funny things I do that haunt me.
But delight me and Sage.
Or forever.
All right. Nope. I did my robot noise and everything that was supposed to cue me up. What is this? I have not had enough caffeine yet.
Maybe we should all do it. Do.
Yep. Uploading. Loading now.
Buffery.
Welcome to Book Dragon Banter. Buffering. This might have to be a blooper episode on the back end. Yeah.